Let's jump right into this. Human history is completely defined by empires, right? But honestly, none of them has looked quite like the one forged over the last century. In today's Explainer, we're diving into this breathtaking historical drama. We're looking at how a single nation rose to sit at the absolute center of the international stage. It's the rise and reign of American global supremacy.
Right off the bat, we're faced with this massive, almost mind-bending question. I want you to imagine the shifting tectonic plates of international history for a second. How does a nation conquer the globe without actually conquering the world? Because unlike the Roman Empire or the Mongols who relied on literally just annexing territory, this is a fundamentally different kind of empire. It's one built on economic leverage, cultural export, and strategic alliances just as much as military might. It's like a giant geopolitical puzzle.
Okay, let's dive into this epic story across 4 distinct chapters. We'll start with Act 1, the stage before supremacy. Then Act 2, key historical turning points. Act 3 is the unrivaled global reign. And we'll wrap up with Act 4, the future of power.
So, setting the scene with Act 1, the stage before supremacy.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between the before and after. Before the explosive era of modern superpowers, the world order was incredibly fragmented, incredibly cautious. Pre-1890s, the US actually maintained a strict regional focus and really intense isolationist tendencies. Think about the Monroe Doctrine, right? They were actively avoiding European entanglements just to focus on continental expansion. But then jump across the timeline to post-1945, and it's literally a completely different reality. We're talking global projection and massive alliance leadership. So how on earth does a nation transition from actively hiding from the global stage to becoming the architect of the entire post-war international system?
Well, that brings us to Act 2, key historical turning points.
Let me tell you, this transition wasn't some slow, gradual ramp-up. It was forged in sudden, dramatic plot twists that changed the global landscape forever. First up, 1898. The Spanish-American War suddenly thrusts the U.S. into the imperial game, picking up outposts all the way from the Caribbean out to the Pacific. Then the tension really builds to 1945 and the end of World War II. With the traditional European powers basically in ruins, the U.S. emerges as the ultimate industrial victor. They were producing nearly half the world's manufacturing output. Crazy, right? And finally, the ultimate twist hits in 1991, the fall of the Soviet Union. Almost overnight, that bipolar, divided world fractures into a completely unipolar reality. Everything changed in a flash. So the crucial point here is exactly this. The emergence of the United States as the dominant global force reshaped the very nature of international power. We're impartially observing a massive structural rewrite of history here. The old rules of colonial empires were totally swept away. They were replaced by a system where global power was projected through institutions like the Bretton Woods system, open markets, and this unprecedented network of influence that was heavily centered around just one single superpower, which sets the stage for the climax of our story. Act 3, the unrivaled global reign. To really grasp the sheer magnitude of this historical reality, we have to define what a superpower actually means in practice. Geopolitically speaking, it's a state with a dominant position characterized by its extensive ability to exert influence or project power on a global scale. It's not just about having a huge army, right? It's having the capability to, say, deploy an aircraft carrier strike group to any ocean on Earth, while simultaneously pulling the strings of international finance and diplomacy to shape global events.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the staggering scale of this dominance. Just look at the evidence. Militarily, this meant a sprawling global base network that allowed for rapid deployment across multiple continents at the exact same time. Economically, we're talking about an unparalleled share of global GDP, acting as the unyielding engine of the entire world's trade. And diplomatically, a massive web of international alliances created this global security umbrella guaranteed by just one capital city. This isn't just dry data, it's the jaw-dropping proof of unmatched global hegemony at its peak.
Let's move on and see how this builds into the pillars of the reign. These metrics form the structural foundation. You've got unmatched military projection acting as the shield and economic system leadership as the lifeblood of trade. But, equally vital is cultural soft power. We're talking about the global export of Hollywood movies, pop music, and tech. It's winning minds right alongside markets. And capped off by uncontested unipolarity post-1991, these interconnected pillars sustained a remarkably stable, highly centralized international order where there was simply no equal competitor. But let's fast forward to today with Act 4, the future of power. Because as we know, no climax lasts forever. Today, the tectonic plates of history are shifting once again right under our feet. The geopolitical landscape is evolving rapidly, challenging that era of uncontested unipolarity and signaling a brand new global paradigm. We're impartially observing emerging economic blocs like BRICS on the rise. We see a highly competitive China altering dynamics in the Pacific, and new alliances forming entirely outside traditional Western frameworks. That uncontested supremacy we just examined, it's actively diffusing into a much more complex, multipolar environment.
Which leaves us standing right at the precipice of tomorrow. We've traced this absolutely incredible ascent, going from an isolated republic to the center of a unipolar world, and now shifting into a complex multipolar stage. So I want to leave you with this final lingering question. What will the next chapter of this global dramatic narrative look like? Because as new powers rise and the old rules are fiercely tested, one thing is absolutely for sure. This story is far from over. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and never stop exploring the history that shapes our world today.